My daughter-in-law pushed me to the back of the conference room. "Stay quiet. You barely finished school and this is a billion-dollar deal with China." She had no idea who I really was. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from. And subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. The conference room on the 47th floor of the Way International Tower smelled like expensive leather and fresh orchids. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Seattle's skyline, the Space Needle rising in the distance like a needle pointing toward possibilities that Megan couldn't begin to comprehend. I stood in the corner where she had shoved me, my sensible cardigan and reading glasses completing the picture of a harmless old woman. That was the point. That had always been the point. Megan smoothed her Chanel suit and checked her reflection in the window. At 35, she was everything she thought a successful businesswoman should be: polished, aggressive, ruthlessly ambitious. She had married my son Derek 6 years ago, and in that time, she had systematically taken control of his life, his business, and his relationship with me. "Wei will be here in 5 minutes, she announced to the room. "Everyone knows their roles. Derek, you handle the technical specifications. James, you've got the financials. And Patricia," she turned to me with a condescending smile, "just sit there and try not to embarrass us." Derek wouldn't meet my eyes. He never did anymore, not when Megan was in the room. My son, who used to call me every Sunday, who used to ask for my advice on everything from relationships to business deals, now sat silently while his wife treated me like furniture. "I could help with the translation," I offered quietly. "If there are any communication issues," Megan laughed. "Translation? You can barely work your smartphone. Wei speaks perfect English. This isn't some rural village deal. This is international business at the highest level." I said nothing. I had learned long ago that silence was more powerful than argument. The door opened, and Mr. Wei entered. He was shorter than I expected from his photographs, perhaps 5'6", but he moved with the contained energy of a man who had built an empire from nothing. 2 assistants flanked him, tablets in hand, recording everything. "Mrs. Holloway," he said, extending his hand to Megan. His English was indeed perfect, tinged with a slight British accent from his years at Oxford. "Thank you for meeting with me today." "The pleasure is all ours, Mr. Wei." Megan's smile was dazzling, practiced. "We're thrilled about this partnership opportunity. Holloway Tech has been looking to expand into the Asian market for years, and your infrastructure is exactly what we need." Wei nodded politely, but I noticed his eyes scanning the room. When they landed on me, standing in the corner in my cardigan, something flickered across his face. Recognition? Curiosity? I couldn't tell. The meeting began. Megan launched into her presentation. Slides, charts, projections. She was good, I had to admit. She knew how to command a room, how to make numbers dance, how to paint a picture of mutual prosperity. But I was watching Mr. 45 minutes into the presentation. Mr. Wei raised his hand. "Forgive me, Mrs. Holloway, but I have some concerns about the implementation timeline." "Of course. Mr. What specifically?" He turned to his assistant and spoke rapidly in Mandarin. The words hit me like cold water. "This woman is an idiot. She has no idea that these projections are fantasy. The company is already bleeding money. I saw the real financials last week. She thinks she can fool me with pretty slides and a designer suit." His assistant nodded, suppressing a smile. Wei turned back to Megan, his expression bland and professional. "I apologize. I was asking my assistant to note some technical details. Please continue." Megan beamed, oblivious. "Of course. As I was saying, the synergies between our companies..." I watched her gesture at another slide, watched her smile at a man who had just called her an idiot in a language she didn't understand. She was about to sign a contract that would give Mr. Wei majority control of her company within 18 months. I had seen the original documents last night when Derek left them on the kitchen table. The Mandarin clauses buried in the appendices were brutal. Liquidation rights, forced buyouts, intellectual property transfers. Megan thought she was getting a partnership. She was getting a hostile takeover in slow motion. Wei spoke to his assistant again. "Get the contract ready. Let her sign her own bankruptcy. It will be amusing to watch." Something inside me shifted. I had spent 40 years hiding who I really was, 40 years pretending to be a simple housewife, a modest mother, a woman who barely finished school. I had done it to protect my family, to keep my work separate from my personal life, to give my son the normal childhood I never had. But watching Megan grab the pen, watching her smile triumphantly as she prepared to destroy everything Derek had built, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Wei Xianxing, I said, stepping forward. Qing yuan liang wo de tang tu, da ningang kai sho de hua shi bu dui de? Wei, please forgive my rudeness. But what you just said was incorrect. The room went absolutely still. Megan's pen froze above the signature line. Derek's mouth fell open. The assistants exchanged shocked glances. Wei turned to me slowly. His expression had transformed from dismissive boredom to intense interest. Ni hui shuo zhongwen? He asked. You speak Chinese? Was I Beijing gongzuo leer shi wunian? I replied. I worked in Beijing for 25 years. Worenshi ni de fukin, Wei Jiangguo. Women zai 1987, Nian de Mao Yihui Yisheng Jianguo Mian. I knew your father, Wei Jiangguo. We met at the trade conference in 1987. The color drained from Megan's face. Patricia, what are you doing? What are you saying? I ignored her. My eyes were locked on Mr. Wei, who was staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. Niship, he started, then switched to English. You are Patricia Holloway? The Patricia Holloway who worked with the State Department? My father spoke of you often. He said you were the most skilled negotiator he ever encountered. He said you once talked a room of generals into a ceasefire using nothing but proverbs and patience. Your father was kind, and he was a good man. Wei nodded slowly. Then he turned to Megan, and his expression hardened. Mrs. Holloway, the younger Mrs. Holloway, I must inform you that this negotiation is over. Megan's pen clattered to the table. What? But we haven't even signed. I know what's in my own contracts. I know what you were about to sign. And I know that you had no intention of honoring the spirit of our agreement. That's not true. Please. Mr. Wei held up his hand. I have been in business for 35 years. I can recognize ambition without substance, greed without strategy. He picked up the contract and, with deliberate precision, tore it in half, then in quarters. The pieces fluttered to the conference table like dead leaves. Megan stood there, frozen, watching her billion-dollar deal disintegrate. Wei turned back to me. Mrs. Holloway, the elder Mrs. Holloway, I came to Seattle because my father told me before he died that if I ever needed a partner in America, I should find you. I did not realize you were connected to this company until 5 minutes ago. I'm not connected to this company, I said quietly. I'm just the mother-in-law who barely finished school. Wei laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and surprised. My father also said you were humble. He said it was your most dangerous quality. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card. I would be honored to discuss a partnership with you, Mrs. Holloway. A real partnership between people who understand the value of honesty and patience. He pressed the card into my hand, then bowed slightly. A formal bow, the kind reserved for respected elders. Wei Xiansheng, I said, returning the bow. Wo hui kao lu de? Wei, I will consider it. He nodded, gathered his assistants, and swept out of the conference room without another glance at Megan. The silence that followed was absolute. Derek was staring at me like he had never seen me before. Megan was staring at the torn contract, her face cycling through disbelief, rage, and fear. Patricia. Her voice was strangled. What have you done? I looked at my daughter-in-law, at the woman who had pushed me to the corner, who had told me to stay quiet, who had spent 6 years undermining my relationship with my son. I saved you from signing your own bankruptcy, I said. You're welcome. Then I picked up my purse and walked out of the conference room, leaving Megan to contemplate the ruins of her ambition. In the elevator, I allowed myself one small smile. 40 years of hiding. 40 years of letting people underestimate me. It felt good to finally step into the light. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Mom, we need to talk. Yes, I thought. We certainly do. But that conversation would wait. Right now, I had a phone call to make. I dialed Raymond Burke's number. He answered on the second ring. Patricia, it's been years. What can I do for you? Raymond, I need you to run a full background check on someone. Megan Foster Holloway. Everything. Finances, past relationships, business dealings. I want to know who I'm really dealing with. A pause. That's your daughter-in-law. Yes, and I think she's about to become a much bigger problem than anyone realizes. I'll have a preliminary report by tomorrow. Thank you, Raymond. And Raymond? This stays between us. Always, Patricia. Always. I hung up and stepped out of the elevator into the Seattle afternoon. The sky was gray, promising rain, but I barely noticed. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like myself again. The diplomat. The negotiator. The woman who had talked generals into ceasefire. And now, the woman who was going to find out exactly what her daughter-in-law was hiding. Raymond Burke's office was on the 12th floor of a building that had seen better days. The carpet was worn, the paint was peeling, and the receptionist's desk had been empty for at least 5 years. But Raymond was the best private investigator on the West Coast, and he didn't need a fancy office to prove it. Patricia Holloway. He stood as I entered, a smile spreading across his weathered face. The ghost of Beijing finally surfaces. Don't start, Raymond. 23 years in diplomatic intelligence, fluent in 6 languages, personal friend of 3 Chinese premiers, and you've spent the last decade pretending to be a retired schoolteacher? He shook his head. It's a crime against talent. It was a choice. My choice. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. The leather was cracked but comfortable. I had sat in this chair many times over the years, though never for something this personal. So, Raymond opened a folder thick with documents. Your daughter-in-law. Where do you want me to start? Megan Foster. Born in Sacramento, 1989. Father was a small-time con artist who died in prison when she was 12. Mother remarried 3 times, each husband wealthier than the last. She learned from the best, apparently. Raymond flipped a page. She put herself through community college. Genuinely, that part checks out. Worked her way up through a series of tech startups in the Bay Area. Met your son Derek at a conference in 2017. Married him 8 months later. I remember. I wasn't invited to the wedding. Raymond raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Here's where it gets interesting. Before Derek, Megan was engaged to a man named Thomas Chen. Yes, I know. Ironic surname given everything. Tech entrepreneur. Company valued at $40 million. The engagement ended abruptly 6 weeks before the wedding. Thomas Chen's company went bankrupt 4 months after Megan left him. Forensic accountants found evidence of systematic fund transfers to offshore accounts, but they could never prove who did it. Raymond handed me a photograph. Thomas Chen killed himself the following year. I stared at the photo. A young man, bright-eyed and hopeful, completely unaware of what was coming. I think Megan is very good at making things disappear. Money, evidence, people who ask too many questions. Raymond pulled out another document. After she married Derek, Holloway Tech's finances started showing some interesting patterns. Small transfers at first, $10,000 here, $20,000 there. But over the past 2 years, the amounts have escalated. As of last month, approximately $4.2 million has been moved to accounts that don't officially exist. Derek doesn't know. Derek handles the technical side of the business. Megan handles the finances. He trusts her completely. Raymond's expression softened. Patricia, your son isn't stupid. He's just in love with someone who's very good at manipulation. I thought about Derek as a little boy, bringing me flowers from the garden, asking me to check his homework. He had always trusted too easily, loved too deeply. It was his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. The Way International deal. I did some digging. Raymond opened a new folder. That contract Megan was about to sign? The Mandarin clauses in the appendices would have given Way International controlling interest in Holloway Tech within 18 months. But here's the interesting part. Those clauses weren't in the original draft. Someone added them. Someone added them after Megan reviewed the English version and before the final contract was produced. And the only people with access to that document were Megan, her lawyer, and Mr. Way's team. You think it was Megan? I think Megan was planning to sign away her husband's company, collect a finder's fee from Way International, and disappear before anyone figured out what happened. Raymond closed the folder. She's done it before, Patricia. The pattern with Thomas Chen is almost identical. I sat in silence, processing. My daughter-in-law wasn't just difficult or ambitious. She was a predator, a sophisticated, patient predator who had been systematically destroying my son's life for 6 years. There's one more thing, Raymond said. I found communications between Megan and someone in Hong Kong, encrypted, but my people managed to crack them. He handed me a printout. The messages were brief, businesslike. Megan, timeline accelerated. Deal signing Tuesday. Hong Kong. Understood. Transfer upon confirmation. Megan, what about the mother? Hong Kong. Irrelevant. She's nobody. Megan, agreed. Old woman doesn't know anything. I read that last line 3 times. Old woman doesn't know anything. Who's in Hong Kong? Still working on that. But whoever it is, they've been coordinating with Megan for at least 2 years. Raymond leaned back in his chair. Patricia, this isn't just a greedy daughter-in-law. This is a criminal conspiracy. You need to go to the authorities. And tell them what? That I have suspicions based on encrypted messages and circumstantial evidence? That I used to work for the State Department and I have a feeling about this woman? I shook my head. I need proof. Real proof. The kind that will hold up in court. That could take months. Then it takes months. Raymond studied me for a long moment. You know, I've known you for 30 years. I've never seen you like this. Angry. Really angry. I thought about Megan pushing me to the corner of that conference room. About Derek refusing to meet my eyes. About 6 years of being treated like a burden, a nuisance, an obstacle to be managed. She tried to destroy my son, I said quietly. She's been doing it for 6 years, and I was too focused on being polite to see it. Well, I'm done being polite. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Mom, we need to talk. Where are you? I typed back. I'm busy. I'll call you later. His response was immediate. Megan is furious. She says you sabotaged the deal deliberately. She wants to talk to you. I'm sure she does, I thought. I typed, I have nothing to say to Megan. Another text. Mom, please, she's threatening to leave me if we can't work this out. I stared at the message. 3 days ago, I would have rushed to smooth things over, to apologize, to keep the peace at any cost. But that was before I knew what Megan really was. Derek, I typed, I love you, but you need to ask yourself some hard questions about your wife. Start with the company finances. I turned off my phone. Bold move, Raymond said. What happens when she comes after you? She already has. She just doesn't know it yet. I stood and gathered the folders. Keep digging, Raymond. I want to know everything about that Hong Kong contact. And I want the financial records from Holloway Tech. The real ones, not the ones Megan shows the board. That's going to require some creative acquisition. I trust your creativity. Raymond walked me to the door. Patricia, be careful. People like Megan don't go down easily. When they're cornered, they fight. I know. That's what I'm counting on. I left his office and took the elevator down to street level. Seattle was gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that made everything feel muted and uncertain. My phone was still off, but I knew what was waiting for me. Angry texts from Derek, threatening messages from Megan, demands for explanations, apologies, reconciliation. I had somewhere else to be. The Way International Seattle office was in a gleaming tower downtown, all glass and steel and corporate ambition. I walked through the lobby, gave my name to the receptionist, and waited. 5 minutes later, a young woman in an impeccable suit appeared. Mrs. Holloway? Way will see you now. The private office was smaller than the conference room, but far more elegant. Traditional Chinese paintings hung on the walls, and a jade dragon sat on the mahogany desk. Wei stood by the window watching the rain. Mrs. Holloway, I was hoping you would come. Thank you for seeing me. He gestured to a chair and I sat. He remained standing, his expression thoughtful. My father told me many stories about you, he said. The American woman who spoke better Mandarin than most native speakers. The diplomat who could read a room in seconds. The negotiator who never lost. He turned to face me. He said you were the reason the 1992 trade agreement succeeded. That you spent 3 days in a room with 12 men who hated each other, and you made them see common ground. Your father was generous with his praise. My father was never generous with anything. If he praised you, it was because you earned it. Mr. Wei sat down across from me. So tell me, Mrs. Holloway, what brings the legendary diplomat to my office? My daughter-in-law is a criminal. She's been stealing from my son's company for years, and she was about to use your deal to complete the theft and disappear. I need to stop her. Wei was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I suspected as much. The contract she was about to sign, the original terms were reasonable, but someone altered them, added clauses that would have given my company total control within 18 months. When I saw those changes, I knew something was wrong. You knew the contract was corrupt? I knew it was corrupt. I did not know who had corrupted it. He leaned forward. Mrs. Holloway, I did not come to Seattle to steal a tech company. I came because I respected your family's work, and I wanted a genuine partnership. When I saw what had been done to the contract, I was prepared to walk away entirely. Because I saw you standing in the corner, and I recognized something in your eyes. The same look my father used to have when he was about to outmaneuver an opponent. Mr. Wei smiled slightly. I decided to wait and see what you would do. Now I want to help you, not for business reasons, though I still believe a partnership could benefit both of us, but because my father would have wanted me to. He always said that loyalty to friends was more important than any contract. I felt something loosen in my chest. For the first time in days, I didn't feel entirely alone. What do you need? Mr. Wei asked. Information. Your team had access to the contract at various stages. I need to know exactly when the corrupt clauses were added and by whom. I can provide that. My IT department logs every change to every document. I also need your public support. When I move against Megan, she's going to claim I sabotaged a legitimate business deal out of jealousy or senility. If you stand with me, then her claims become obviously false. Mr. Wei nodded. You will have my support, publicly and privately. Thank you, Mr. Wei. Please, call me David. My father was Mr. Wei. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had managed in days. David, there's one more thing. Do you have contacts in Hong Kong? Someone Megan might have been working with? His expression shifted. Why do you ask? Because someone in Hong Kong has been coordinating with Megan for at least 2 years. Someone who helped her plan this operation from the beginning. David was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. There is a woman, he said slowly. Victoria Lane. She runs a financial services firm in Hong Kong that has been linked to several corporate frauds across Asia. We've suspected her of money laundering for years, but we've never been able to prove it. She targets vulnerable companies, finds someone on the inside, usually someone with access and ambition, and helps them drain the company from within. In exchange, she takes a percentage of the proceeds. And you think she's connected to Megan? I think it's possible. Victoria specializes in tech companies, and she has a history of working with American partners. David turned back to me. If Megan is working with Victoria Lane, this is bigger than a family dispute. This is organized financial crime. I absorbed this information. My daughter-in-law wasn't just a con artist. She was part of a network, an international operation that had been targeting companies like Derek's for years. Can you get me a meeting with Victoria Lane? David stared at me. That would be extremely dangerous. Victoria has connections to people who make problems disappear. Permanently. He studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. I'll make some calls. But, Patricia, Mrs. Holloway, be careful. Victoria Lane is not someone to underestimate. I stood and shook his hand. Thank you, David, for everything. Thank my father. He's the one who taught me to recognize quality when I see it. I left his office and stepped back into the Seattle rain. My phone was still off. The world could wait. And for the first time in 6 years, I knew exactly who I was again. Not a harmless old woman, not a retired schoolteacher, not someone to be pushed to the corner and ignored. I was Patricia Holloway, diplomat, negotiator, and soon, if everything went according to plan, the woman who would bring down an international criminal network. Megan had no idea what she had awakened, but she was about to find out. The financial records arrived at 3 a.m. Raymond had outdone himself. 3 years of Holloway Tech's real books, not the sanitized versions Megan showed the board. I spread them across my kitchen table, coffee growing cold beside me, and began to trace the money. The pattern was elegant, I had to admit. Megan had created a web of shell companies, each one slightly removed from the last, each one taking a small percentage before passing funds to the next. By the time the money reached its final destination, an account in Hong Kong, it was virtually untraceable. Virtually, but not completely. The total over 3 years, $4.7 million, nearly $5 million stolen from my son's company, from the business his father had helped him start before cancer took Harold away. I thought about Harold in those last months, sitting Derek down at this very table, going over business plans and growth strategies. Build something real, he had said, something that matters, and never let anyone take it from you. Megan had taken it. Slowly, methodically, she had drained the company Derek had built in his father's memory. My phone buzzed. Derek again. I had been ignoring his calls for 2 days, but I couldn't avoid him forever. I answered. Hello, Derek. Mom, thank God. Where have you been? Megan is losing her mind. She says you've been spreading lies about her, that you're trying to destroy our marriage. I need you to come to my house, alone. Don't tell Megan where you're going. Mom, what is this about? It's about the truth. Will you come? A long pause. Then, I'll be there in an hour. I spent that hour organizing the evidence. Financial records on one side of the table, Raymond's investigative report on the other, David Way's documentation of the contract alterations in the center. When Derek arrived, his face was drawn and tired. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Mom? What's going on? Megan said, Sit down, Derek, please. He sat. I poured him coffee and placed the first document in front of him. The real financial records from Holloway Tech, not the ones Megan shows the board, the actual books. Derek frowned and began reading. I watched his face as the numbers sank in. This can't be right, he said slowly. It shows transfers to companies I've never heard of. Shell Corp Alpha, Pacific Holdings LLC. These aren't our vendors. I handed him the next document. The Shell Company registration records, each one tracing back to a single point of origin. Mom, I don't understand. Who set these up? Derek's head snapped up. That's impossible. Megan handles the finances, but she would never... Look at the signatures, Derek. Look at the dates. He looked. The color drained from his face. This has to be some kind of mistake. Someone must have forged her name. There's more. I handed him Raymond's report on Thomas Chen, the newspaper clippings about the bankruptcy, the suicide notice. Derek read in silence. When he finished, his hands were shaking. You're saying Megan did this before? To someone else? I'm saying the pattern is identical. She targeted a tech entrepreneur, gained control of his finances, drained the company, and disappeared before anyone could prove anything. But she loves me. We're married. We have a life together. Derek. I reached across the table and took his hands. I know this is hard to hear. I know you love her. But look at the evidence. Really look at it. He pulled away and stood up, pacing the kitchen. You've never liked Megan. From the beginning, you've tried to turn me against her. Is that what she told you? She said you were jealous, that you couldn't stand seeing me happy with someone else, that you'd do anything to break us up. And you believed her. He stopped. I don't know what to believe anymore. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Seattle morning was gray and uncertain. When you were 7 years old, I said, you brought home a stray dog. It was filthy and half-starved, and you begged me to let you keep it. Do you remember what I said? You said we needed to check if it belonged to someone first, that we couldn't just take it because we wanted it. That's right. And what happened? We found the owner, a little girl whose dog had run away. She was so happy to get it back. And you cried for 3 days. You wanted that dog more than anything, but we did the right thing anyway. I turned to face him. Derek, I have spent my entire career helping people see the truth, even when it hurts. I have negotiated treaties, ended standoffs, and talked people out of decisions that would have destroyed their lives. I know how to lie. I know how to manipulate. And I am telling you, right now, that I am not doing either. Derek stared at me. I could see the battle playing out on his face, the part of him that loved Megan fighting against the evidence in front of his eyes. There's one more thing, I said. The Way International contract, the one Megan was about to sign. I handed him David's documentation, the original contract terms, the altered clauses, the timeline showing exactly when the changes were made. Derek read it. I watched his face transform, from confusion to understanding to horror. The clauses in Mandarin, he said slowly, the ones that would have given Way control of the company, were added after Megan reviewed the English version by someone with access to the document. That means Megan was going to sign away your company, deliberately, and then disappear with whatever she could salvage. Derek sat down heavily, as if his legs had given out. Oh God, he whispered. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Derek. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. 3 years. His voice was hollow. 3 years of marriage, and she's been stealing from me the entire time, planning to destroy everything I've built. He looked up at me with eyes that were wet and lost. Why didn't I see it? Because she didn't want you to see it. Because she's very good at what she does. And because you loved her. I still love her. He laughed, bitter and broken. How pathetic is that? I see the evidence, I know what she's done, and I still love her. That's not pathetic. That's human. Derek was quiet for a long time. Then, what do we do now? That depends on you. You're the one who has to decide, Derek. Do we go to the authorities? Do we confront Megan? Do we try to recover the money? I sat down across from him. I have resources, contacts. I can help you fight this, but only if you want to fight. You have resources? Mom, you're a retired school teacher. I smiled. It was time for the final truth. Derek, I wasn't a school teacher. I was a diplomatic translator for the State Department for 23 years. I worked on some of the most sensitive negotiations of the late 20th century. The reason I speak fluent Mandarin is because I spent half my career in Asia, helping broker trade deals and political agreements. I retired when your father got sick, and I never told you because I wanted you to have a normal childhood. I wanted you to see me as your mother, not as a government agent. But I never stopped being who I was. I reached across and took his hand. And who I am is someone who does not let the people I love get destroyed. All those years, Derek said slowly. All those times I thought you were just a housewife, puttering around, not understanding anything about my business or my world. I understood everything. I just chose not to show it, because that's what mothers do. We hide our power so our children can find their own. But you're not a child anymore, Derek. And Megan isn't just a difficult wife. She's a criminal who has been targeting you from the beginning. Derek pulled his hand away and stood up again. He walked to the window, staring out at the gray Seattle sky. What about Dad? Did he know? Your father knew everything. He loved me for who I was, not who I pretended to be, and he never said anything. He respected my decision to keep that life separate from our family. He said, my voice caught. He said I had given enough to my country, that I deserved to just be Mom. Derek turned back to face me. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, mother and son, strangers and family, seeing each other clearly for the first time in decades. I want to fight, he said finally. I want to get the money back, and I want Megan to pay for what she's done. But Mom, he crossed to me and took my hands. I'm going to need your help. All of it. No more hiding. No more hiding, I agreed. He hugged me then, fierce and desperate, the way he used to hug me when he was a little boy scared of thunderstorms. I'm so sorry, he whispered, for pushing you away, for believing her over you, for everything. You have nothing to apologize for. You were manipulated by someone who specializes in manipulation. I held him tighter. But that's over now. We're going to fix this, together. When we finally separated, Derek's face was set with determination. What's the first step? First, we need to find out who Megan is working with. There's someone in Hong Kong coordinating with her. A woman named Victoria Lane. If we can prove the connection, we can bring down the entire network. How do we do that? David Way is arranging a meeting. But before that happens, we need to make sure Megan doesn't suspect anything. You want me to go back to her? Pretend everything is normal? I want you to buy us time. Can you do that? Derek took a deep breath. I can try. Good. Go home. Tell Megan you've calmed me down. That everything is going to be fine. Make her think she's won. And then we spring the trap. Derek nodded and headed for the door. At the threshold, he paused. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said. Not ever. He left. I gathered the documents from the table and locked them in the safe in my bedroom, the safe that had held classified materials for more years than Derek had been alive. Then I sat down and called David Way. David, it's Patricia. I need that meeting with Victoria Lane. I've made contact. She's willing to meet, but only in Hong Kong, and she wants to meet you alone, 3 days from now. Are you sure about this, Patricia? Victoria is dangerous. I know. I looked out the window at Seattle, at the city where my son had built his dreams and his wife had tried to destroy them. But so am I. Then I'll arrange the details. I hung up and began to pack. Hong Kong was waiting. Victoria Lane was waiting. And the final act of this drama was about to begin. Hong Kong hit me like a wall of humid air and neon light. Even at 10 p.m., the city pulsed with energy. Millions of people crammed into towers that scraped the clouds, speaking dozens of languages, chasing dreams and schemes in equal measure. I checked into the Peninsula Hotel under my maiden name. The room was elegant, old-world luxury that felt like a time capsule from a more civilized era. I set up my laptop and reviewed the plan one more time. David Way had arranged everything. Victoria Lane believed she was meeting a potential investor, an elderly American woman with connections to the State Department, looking to move money quietly. It wasn't far from the truth. The best lies never were. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. She suspects nothing. Made dinner. Talked about vacation plans. Hard to pretend. I typed back, hold steady. This will be over soon. His response, be careful, Mom. I can't lose you too. I turned off the phone and got ready for bed. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Victoria Lane's office in the International Commerce Center, the tallest building in Hong Kong, a glass and steel monument to ambition and money. I dressed carefully, conservative suit, minimal jewelry, reading glasses on a chain around my neck. The picture of a wealthy grandmother looking to protect her assets. Victoria's office occupied the entire 88th floor. The number was intentional. 8 was lucky in Chinese culture, and Victoria knew how to play the game. She had been doing it for 30 years. Mrs. Patterson? Victoria rose from behind her glass desk as I entered. She was smaller than I expected. Perhaps 5'2", with silver-streaked hair and the kind of face that had been beautiful once and had aged into something harder. Thank you for coming all this way. Thank you for seeing me, Ms. Lane. I took the offered seat. I know how valuable your time is. Time is the one currency that can't be manipulated, unlike money. She smiled, all teeth. Now, you mentioned wanting to discuss asset protection. What exactly did you have in mind? I played my role. I told her a story about an elderly widow with substantial holdings in American tech companies, about concerns regarding inheritance taxes and greedy relatives, about a desire to move assets offshore without attracting attention. Victoria listened with the patience of a spider waiting for a fly. These concerns are not unusual, she said when I finished. Many of my clients come to me with similar situations. The American tax system is predatory toward those who have accumulated wealth honestly. Exactly. And I've heard you have experience with delicate transfers. Delicate is one word for it. Victoria stood and walked to the window. Hong Kong sprawled beneath us, a sea of lights and movement. Mrs. Patterson, let me be direct with you. I do not help clients hide money. I help them optimize their financial structures for maximum efficiency and minimum governmental interference. Everything I do is technically legal, the best kind of legal. She turned back to me. Now, I assume David Way vouched for you, or you wouldn't be in this room. What I need to know is, what is your real motivation? Because in my experience, elderly widows with reading glasses do not fly to Hong Kong for tax advice. I adjusted my reading glasses and smiled. You're good, Ms. Lane. I'm the best. That's why you're here. My real motivation? I leaned back in my chair. I have a daughter-in-law. Beautiful, ambitious, very good at manipulating my son. For the past 3 years, she has been systematically stealing from his company. I believe she's planning to disappear with the money and leave him with nothing. Victoria's expression didn't change. And what does this have to do with me? I think you're working with her. The temperature in the room dropped. Victoria's smile became something dangerous. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence. Encrypted communications between my daughter-in-law and someone in Hong Kong. Financial transfers to accounts linked to your firm. A pattern of corporate fraud that matches at least 3 other companies you've been connected to. If you had real evidence, you wouldn't be in my office. You'd be talking to the police. You're right. I don't have proof that would hold up in court. Not yet. I stood and walked to the window, standing beside her. But I didn't come here for proof. I came here to make a deal. Victoria raised an eyebrow. What kind of deal? My daughter-in-law has already stolen almost $5 million from my son's company. I want it back. I also want Megan gone, out of my son's life, out of the country, permanently. In exchange, I forget everything I know about your operations, the companies you've helped destroy, the pattern of fraud stretching back decades. All of it stays buried. Victoria studied me for a long moment. You're not what you appear to be, are you, Mrs. Patterson? Neither are you, Ms. Lane. That's why we're having this conversation. Who are you really? Someone who has spent 40 years solving problems that couldn't be solved through conventional means. Someone who understands that sometimes, the best outcome is the one where everyone walks away with something. Victoria walked to her desk and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. She handed one to me. Let me tell you something about Megan Foster, she said. I've been working with her for 4 years. She's smart, ruthless, and completely without moral constraints. In another life, she could have been a Fortune 500 CEO. Instead, she chose to be a predator. Because it was easier. Because conventional success requires patience, and Megan has none. She sees what she wants, and she takes it. Victoria sipped her whiskey. When she approached me about the Holloway job, I knew it would be lucrative. Tech companies are easy targets. Complicated finances, distracted founders, too much trust in the people around them. Victoria's expression flickered. That was before my time with Megan. But I've seen the pattern. She doesn't just steal money. She destroys people. It's almost pathological. Then why work with her? Because destroying her would have been more trouble than it was worth. Until now. Victoria set down her glass. You changed it. When you spoke Mandarin in that conference room, when you exposed the contract alterations, you made Megan radioactive. No one will work with her now, which means she's become a liability to me. So help me remove her, permanently. And what do you consider permanent? Prison, federal charges for wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. Enough to keep her locked away for 20 years. Victoria laughed. You want to put her in prison? That's your revenge? It's not revenge. It's justice. Justice. She said the word like it was a foreign concept. Mrs. Patterson, or whoever you really are, I have spent 30 years helping people move money across borders. I have dealt with dictators, drug lords, and corrupt politicians. I have never, in all that time, met anyone who wanted something as simple as justice. Then I'm your first. Victoria finished her whiskey and set the glass down with a decisive click. I'll help you. But not because I believe in justice. Because Megan has become a problem that needs to be solved, and you seem capable of solving it. What do you need from me? Nothing. I'll arrange for the evidence to reach the appropriate authorities. Financial records, communication logs, everything needed to build a case. In exchange, you will never mention my name, my company, or our conversation today. That's it. But Mrs. Patterson, Victoria's eyes were hard. If you ever come after me, if you ever try to use what you know against my interests, I will destroy everyone you love, starting with your son. Good. Then we understand each other. She extended her hand. I shook it. The evidence will be delivered to the FBI's Hong Kong office within 48 hours, Victoria said. They'll coordinate with Seattle. By the time you land back in America, Megan will already be under investigation. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Don't thank me. Just keep your word. I left her office and took the elevator down 88 floors, watching Hong Kong fall away through the glass walls. It was done. The trap was set. Now I just had to get home before it sprang. I called Derek from the airport. Mom, how did it go? Better than expected. Victoria Lane is turning on Megan. Evidence is being delivered to the FBI as we speak. Victoria is... Wait, you actually met her? The woman running the whole operation? And she just agreed to help you? I gave her a choice. Help me remove Megan or become a target herself. She chose wisely. Derek was silent for a long moment. Mom, I thought I knew you. I thought I understood who you were. But the past week... He laughed, disbelief and admiration mixed together. You flew to Hong Kong and negotiated with an international criminal mastermind. You played chess with people who have destroyed dozens of companies. Who are you? I'm your mother, Derek. I'm also someone who spent decades protecting American interests in rooms just like Victoria Lane's. I retired because I wanted a normal life, but normal stopped being an option when Megan pushed me to that corner. Now you go home and act like nothing has changed. The FBI will move in the next few days. When they do, I need you to be surprised. Can you do that? Good. I'll be home by tomorrow evening. We'll get through this together. Mom? Derek's voice was thick. I love you. I love you too, son. Always. I hung up and boarded the plane. 16 hours later, I landed in Seattle. The rain was falling, same as always. The gray sky felt like home. I checked my phone. A message from Raymond. FBI executed search warrant on Holloway Tech 2 hours ago. Megan arrested at the office. She's in federal custody. Another message from David Wei. News reached Hong Kong already. Victoria Lane has vanished, closed her office and disappeared. You've made a powerful enemy, Patricia. I typed back, I've had powerful enemies before. They tend to underestimate me. A third message, from Derek. It's over. They took her away in handcuffs. She was screaming that it was all your fault, that you'd set her up. Nobody believed her. I closed my eyes and breathed. It wasn't over. Not yet. There would be trials and testimonies and years of legal proceedings. Megan would fight with everything she had. Victoria Lane, wherever she was hiding, would be watching for any opportunity to strike. But for now, in this moment, my son was free. That was everything. The federal courthouse in Seattle was a brutalist concrete building that seemed designed to intimidate. On the morning of Megan's preliminary hearing, the rain had finally stopped, and pale sunlight filtered through the clouds like a reluctant blessing. Derek and I sat in the gallery, watching the proceedings unfold. Megan was at the defendant's table, flanked by 2 lawyers in expensive suits, her defense team, paid for with the last of her hidden assets. She wore a conservative gray dress and minimal makeup, the image of wounded innocence. But when she turned to look at the gallery, her eyes found mine. The hatred there was so pure it was almost beautiful. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet Torres, stood to present the government's case. Your Honor, the evidence against the defendant is overwhelming. Bank records show systematic transfers of funds from Holloway Technologies to a series of shell companies controlled by Mrs. Holloway. Communications recovered from encrypted servers document her coordination with an international money laundering operation. We have testimony from multiple sources confirming her pattern of targeting vulnerable companies and their owners. Objection, Megan's lead attorney said. The prosecution is making inflammatory statements without foundation. Sustained. Keep it to the facts, Ms. Torres. The facts, Your Honor, are these. $4.7 million was transferred from Holloway Technologies to offshore accounts over a 3-year period. The defendant's fingerprints are on every transaction. We also have evidence linking her to a previous case of corporate fraud in California, a case that resulted in the bankruptcy of the victim's company and, subsequently, his death. Megan flinched. It was small, barely visible, but I saw it. The mention of Thomas Chen still had power over her. "We request that the defendant be held without bail pending trial," Ms. Torres continued. "She has the means and connections to flee the country. She has demonstrated a pattern of predatory behavior that makes her a danger to the community. And frankly, Your Honor, she has nowhere to go. Her former associates have cut all ties." Megan's attorney stood to respond. "Your Honor, my client is a respected businesswoman with no prior criminal record. The accusations against her are the result of a vendetta by her estranged mother-in-law, a woman who has admitted to manipulating international business contacts to orchestrate my client's arrest." I felt Derek stiffen beside me. "Furthermore," the attorney continued, "the evidence presented by the prosecution was obtained through questionable means. We intend to challenge its admissibility at trial." The judge was quiet for a moment, reviewing documents on her bench. "The defendant will be held without bail," she said finally. "The evidence is substantial, and the flight risk is real. Trial is set for 3 months from today." Megan's face went pale. Her attorneys leaned in to whisper, but she pushed them away. "This is her fault!" she screamed, pointing at me. "That woman destroyed my life. She set me up from the beginning. Remove the defendant," the judge ordered. 2 marshals stepped forward and took Megan's arms. She fought against them, her composure completely shattered. "You think you've won?" she screamed at me as they dragged her toward the door. "You think this is over? I know things, Patricia. I know about Hong Kong. I know about Victoria Lane. When I tell them everything—" The door closed behind her, cutting off her threats. Derek let out a breath he'd been holding for what seemed like hours. "It's really happening," he said. "She's really going to prison. The preliminary hearing is just the first step. The trial will be harder. But we have the evidence. We have the testimony. She can't win. People like Megan don't fight to win. They fight to destroy. She'll try to take as many people down with her as possible." Derek turned to look at me. "She mentioned Hong Kong, Victoria Lane. Mom, if she tells them about your deal, she can tell them whatever she wants. I didn't do anything illegal. I met with a businesswoman overseas and convinced her to provide evidence of criminal activity. That's not conspiracy, that's diplomacy." "Derek," I put my hand on his arm. "Let me worry about Victoria Lane. You focus on rebuilding your company." He nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. The courthouse was emptying around us. I stood and gathered my things. We walked out into the Seattle afternoon, the pale sun warm on our faces. Derek's car was in the parking garage. He opened the passenger door for me, a small gesture but meaningful. 6 months ago, Megan wouldn't have let him do anything for me. "Mom," he said as we pulled onto the street, "I've been thinking about everything that's happened. The company, Megan, all of it. I don't know if Holloway Tech can survive this. The scandal, the fraud investigation. Half our clients have already canceled contracts. The ones who haven't are asking questions I can't answer." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Maybe it's time to let it go. Sell what's left and start over." "Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore. I thought I wanted to build something great. I thought I wanted to make Dad proud. But now," he shook his head, "now I just want to stop feeling like a failure." I was quiet for a moment, watching Seattle pass by the window. The city where my son had built his dreams. The city where those dreams had almost been destroyed. "When your father was dying," I said, "he told me something. He said that success isn't about building something that lasts forever. It's about building something that matters while it lasts." "What does that mean?" "It means Holloway Tech was never the point. The point was what you learned building it, the skills you developed, the relationships you formed, the person you became." I turned to face him. "You can start over, Derek. Not because you failed, but because you're ready for something new. And what would that new thing be? I don't know, but you'll figure it out. You always do." Derek was quiet for the rest of the drive. When we pulled into my driveway, he turned off the engine and sat there, staring at his hands. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, "something I should have said years ago. When Megan first started pushing you away, telling me you were controlling, that you didn't respect our marriage, I knew, somewhere inside, that it wasn't true. I knew who you were. I knew you only wanted me to be happy. Let me finish. I knew the truth, and I ignored it. Because it was easier to believe her. Because believing her meant I didn't have to make hard choices, didn't have to stand up for what was right. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Mom. For 6 years of letting her treat you like nothing. For choosing her over you again and again. For being a coward. I reached across and took his hand. You weren't a coward. You were a man in love, being manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to exploit that love. The fact that you're sitting here now, apologizing, owning your mistakes, that's not cowardice. That's growth. I don't feel like I've grown. I feel like I've just started. That's exactly what growth feels like. He laughed, wet and broken, and then he hugged me across the center console. I love you, Mom. I know I didn't show it, but I never stopped. I know, baby. I know. We sat there for a long time, mother and son, healing wounds that had been open for far too long. Finally, Derek pulled back and wiped his eyes. David Way called yesterday, he said. He wants to meet with both of us. He has a proposal. What kind of proposal? He didn't say, but he was very insistent that you be there, tomorrow. His office, 3 p.m. I nodded slowly. Tell him we'll be there. Derek smiled. A real smile, the first I'd seen from him in months. Mom, thank you for not giving up, for fighting even when I couldn't. That's what mothers do. We fight the battles our children can't see. He started the car and backed out of the driveway. I watched him go, watched his taillights disappear around the corner. Then I went inside and poured myself a glass of wine. The trial was 3 months away. Victoria Lane was somewhere in the world, watching and waiting. Megan was in federal custody, planning whatever revenge she could still manage. But for tonight, I was just an old woman in a quiet house, drinking wine and thinking about all the battles she had won. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tonight, I would rest. 1 year later, I stood in the conference room of Way Holloway International, watching my son sign the partnership agreement that would change both our lives. The room was different from that first meeting. Smaller, more intimate, filled with people who actually respected each other. David Way sat at the head of the table, his smile genuine. Derek was beside him, confident and calm in a way I hadn't seen in years. And across from them, a young woman with intelligent eyes and her father's cheekbones. Lynn Way, David's daughter. The woman Derek had been dating for 6 months. It's official, David said as Derek's signature dried on the document. Way Holloway International is now the sole consultant for Chinese businesses entering the American market, and vice versa. We couldn't have done it without you, Patricia, Lynn said. Your expertise in cross-cultural negotiation has been invaluable. I just helped build the bridge. You're the ones who have to walk across it. David laughed, always so modest. My father warned me about that. The celebration that followed was warm and genuine. Champagne, toasts, laughter that came from somewhere real. I watched Derek and Lynn interact, the easy affection between them, the way she challenged him and he rose to meet her. She was nothing like Megan. Lynn was direct where Megan had been manipulative. She was generous where Megan had been grasping. Most importantly, she saw Derek for who he really was. Not a target to be exploited, but a partner to be valued. After the celebration wound down, Derek found me by the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. Quite a view, he said. It's not the view I'm looking at. He followed my gaze to where Lynn was chatting with her father, her face animated with some story she was telling. She's amazing, Mom. I never thought I could feel this way again. After Megan, I thought I was broken. You weren't broken, just wounded. There's a difference. She wants to meet you properly, not as a business partner. As my mother, I turned to look at my son. He was 40 years old now, gray starting at his temples, but when he smiled, I could still see the little boy who used to bring me flowers. I would like that very much. We left the office together, Derek and Lynn walking ahead, David Way beside me. You've done something remarkable, Patricia, David said. Not just the business partnership. Your son is a different man than he was a year ago. He was always this man. He just forgot for a while. And you helped him remember. David paused at the elevator. I have something for you. A final piece of business. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Victoria Lane, stepping onto a yacht in Monaco. We found her 3 months ago, David said. She's been under surveillance ever since. Interpol is preparing to move on her next week. I have resources too, Patricia. Different from yours, but equally effective. He smiled. Consider it a thank you gift for saving my company from a very expensive mistake. I stared at the photograph. Victoria Lane, the woman who had orchestrated so much destruction, who had threatened everything I loved, finally cornered. What will happen to her? She'll face charges in 7 countries: money laundering, fraud, conspiracy. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison if she's lucky. And if she's not lucky? David's expression darkened. Some of the people she's worked with don't appreciate loose ends. Prison might be the safest place for her. I tucked the photograph into my purse. Another chapter closed. Another enemy neutralized. The elevator arrived, and we all stepped inside. As we descended, Derek reached over and took my hand. Dinner tonight? Just you and me? Good. There's something I want to talk to you about. I raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? Well, maybe. He grinned. I want to ask Lynn to marry me. I wanted to get your blessing first. The elevator stopped and the doors opened onto the lobby. People flowed around us, but for a moment, time seemed to pause. My son, asking for my blessing, after everything we had been through. You have it, I said, completely and unreservedly. Derek hugged me right there in the middle of the lobby, not caring who saw. I love you too, baby, always. That night, we had dinner at a small Italian restaurant that had been Harold's favorite. We talked about the past, the good parts and the bad. We talked about the future, Derek's plans for the company, his hopes for a family with Lynn, his dreams of building something that mattered. And we talked about Megan. Her sentence came through last week, Derek said. 12 years federal plus state charges pending. She'll be eligible for parole in 8. How do you feel about that? Honestly, I don't feel anything. She's just gone, like a disease that finally passed. He twirled pasta on his fork. Is that strange? That's healthy. It means you've moved on. Have you? Moved on, I mean. I considered the question. A year ago, I had been consumed by rage, by the need to protect my son, by the driving force of justice. Now, sitting in this restaurant, watching Derek plan his future with a woman who actually deserved him, I felt something different. I think I have, I said. It took longer than I expected, but yes. What are you going to do now? Now that the business is stable and I don't need saving? I laughed. I've been thinking about that. David has asked me to consult on some international negotiations. Nothing dangerous, just helping bridge cultural gaps. And there's a graduate program at the university that wants me to teach a seminar on diplomatic communication. Professor Patricia Holloway. It has a nice ring to it. It does, doesn't it? We finished dinner as the restaurant emptied around us. The owner, who had known Harold for decades, brought us complimentary grappa and lingered to chat about the old days. When we finally left, the Seattle night was clear and cold, stars visible through gaps in the city lights. Derek walked me to my car. Before I got in, he stopped me. Mom, there's something I've been wanting to say, something I should have said a long time ago. Thank you, not just for saving me from Megan, for everything, for raising me, for supporting me, for being patient when I didn't deserve it, for hiding who you were so I could find out who I was. His voice thickened. Dad used to say you were the strongest person he'd ever met. I never understood what he meant until this year. I reached up and touched his face, the way I used to when he was small. Your father was right about many things, but he was wrong about that. I'm not strong, Derek. I'm just stubborn, and I love you too much to give up. He hugged me again, long and tight. You too. And Derek, when you ask Lynn to marry you, do it somewhere special. Somewhere that means something to both of you. I thought about it. The Space Needle, at sunset. Your father proposed to me there 40 years ago. Derek smiled. The Space Needle it is. I drove home through quiet streets, my mind wandering through the past year. So much had changed. So much had been lost, and so much had been found. Megan was in prison. Victoria Lane would soon join her. Holloway Technologies had been dissolved, but Way Holloway International had risen from its ashes, stronger and more honest than before. And my son, my beautiful, wounded, resilient son, was in love with a good woman who loved him back. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house where I had raised Derek, where Harold had died, where I had spent so many years pretending to be someone I wasn't. It was time for a change. Tomorrow, I would call a real estate agent, find a smaller place, something closer to Derek and Lynn, something that didn't hold so many ghosts. But tonight, I would pour myself a glass of wine, sit in Harold's favorite chair, and remember all the things that had brought me to this moment. The diplomat who became a mother, the mother who became a warrior, the warrior who finally found peace. I went inside, poured my wine, and sat by the window, watching the stars. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like myself. Not Patricia the translator, not Patricia the spy, not Patricia the avenger. It was enough. It was more than enough. The marble floor was colder than I expected. I lay there, stunned, my arthritic knees screaming as 200 pairs of eyes stared down at me. My cane, the one James gave me on our 40th anniversary, hand-carved walnut with brass fittings, rolled away across the polished stone. Someone had kicked it. Hard. Stop faking it! Brooke's voice cut through the chapel like a knife. You killed him for the $50 million. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. I tried to push myself up, but my hands were shaking too badly. The fall had knocked the wind out of me. At 64, you don't bounce back from hitting marble. My right hip throbbed where it had connected with the floor. I could already feel the bruise forming. Mom, just stay down. That was Dylan's voice, somewhere above me, not helping me up, just telling me to stay down, like I was a dog. I had spent 43 years married to James Sullivan, 43 years of packing his lunches, ironing his shirts, raising his son. I'd worked double shifts at Lutheran General when Dylan needed braces. I'd sold my mother's wedding ring to help James start his first business. And now, 4 months after burying my husband, I was lying on the floor of Holy Name Cathedral while my daughter-in-law accused me of murder. The thing about arthritis is that people think you're exaggerating. They see you walk into a room without your cane one day and assume you've been lying about needing it. What they don't see are the mornings you can't get out of bed without 20 minutes of stretching, the nights you sleep sitting up because lying flat makes your knees lock. Brooke knew this. She'd watched me struggle with pill bottles. She'd seen me grip the kitchen counter just to stand upright after loading the dishwasher, and she'd kicked my cane anyway. Security should remove her, Brooke continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the chapel. She was wearing black Prada. I'd seen the price tag when she'd left it lying on my guest bed last month. $4,800 for a dress she'd wear once. She's been trying to control the estate. She forged documents. James told me he was afraid of her. That was a lie. James had never been afraid of anyone in his life, least of all me. I managed to get to my knees. The chapel floor was unforgiving. My right stocking had torn, and I could feel blood trickling down my shin. Dylan stood 3 feet away, his hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. Not at me. At the floor. Dylan. My voice came out hoarse. Help me up. He didn't move. Monsignor Patterson stepped forward instead, his weathered face creased with concern. He'd married James and me in this same chapel in 1981. Mrs. Sullivan, let me help you. Don't touch her, Father, Brooke snapped. She's dangerous. She needs psychiatric evaluation. Dylan's already filed the paperwork with his attorney. That's when I saw him. The Faxinero, the man Brooke had hired 3 months ago to handle the grounds at our Lake Forest estate. Carlos something. He was standing near the side entrance, wearing the same navy work jacket he always wore. But there was something different about the way he was watching Brooke. Not like an employee, like someone taking notes. He moved through the crowd with quiet authority, and I noticed for the first time how he carried himself. Not like a day laborer, like someone used to giving orders. When he reached Brooke, he didn't ask permission. He simply pulled something from his jacket pocket, a leather wallet, and flipped it open. I was too far away to read it, but I saw Brooke's face change. The color drained from her cheeks. "Brooke Sullivan," Carlos said, his voice different now, harder, professional. "I'm investigator Carlos Mendez, Illinois State Police. I need you to come with me." "This is insane," Brooke said, but her voice had lost its edge. "I haven't done anything." Carlos glanced at me, still on my knees, blood running down my leg. Then he looked back at Brooke. When he spoke, every word landed like a hammer. "She didn't kill him, you did." The chapel went silent. Brooke opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. What are you?" "You have the right to remain silent," Carlos continued, pulling handcuffs from his belt. "I suggest you use it." Dylan finally moved. "Wait, Carlos, what the hell is this? You work for us. "I don't work for you," Carlos said flatly. "I've been working with the Cook County State's attorney for the past 8 months. He snapped the first cuff onto Brooke's wrist. She didn't resist. She just stood there, frozen, her mouth slightly open. I stayed on my knees, watching. My hip ached. My shin was still bleeding, but for the first time in 4 months I could breathe. Monsignor Patterson knelt beside me. "Emma, let's get you to a chair." As he helped me up, I kept my eyes on Carlos. He was speaking quietly to another man now, someone in a dark suit who'd appeared from nowhere. The man nodded and moved toward Dylan, who looked like he'd been hit by a truck. My sister-in-law Diane pushed through the crowd, her face fierce. "About damn time," she muttered, wrapping an arm around my waist to steady me. She'd been the one who'd insisted something was wrong. She'd been the one who'd hired Carlos, though I hadn't known that until this moment. "Did you know?" I asked her. "Not everything," she admitted, but enough to know she was lying. Carlos finished with Brooke and turned to address the crowd. "James Sullivan's death is now being investigated as a homicide. Anyone with information is asked to contact the state's attorney's office." Someone gasped. Several people pulled out their phones. Brooke found her voice. Dylan, tell them this is crazy. Tell them I loved your father." But Dylan was staring at Carlos. "Homicide? My father had a heart attack. We saw the death certificate." "Death certificates can be falsified," Carlos said, "especially when the attending physician is being paid to look the other way." He gestured to his partner. "We'll need statements from everyone present at the time of death. Starting with you, Mr. Sullivan." I let Diane guide me to a pew. My legs were shaking so badly I couldn't stand anymore. As I sat down, I looked at the stained glass window above the altar. St. Michael, sword raised, defeating the serpent. James had always loved that window. I pressed my hand against my bleeding shin and wondered how many lies I'd believed. How many times I'd made excuses for Brooke. How many nights I'd told myself that my son's wife was just young and ambitious, not dangerous. Carlos caught my eye across the chapel. He gave me the smallest nod. Then he led Brooke Sullivan toward the door, her handcuffs glinting under the cathedral lights. The hospital discharged me with painkillers and a prescription I couldn't afford to fill. Diane drove me home, not to the Lake Forest estate where James and I had lived for 30 years, but to her townhouse in Evanston. The estate was technically mine according to the will, but Brooke's lawyers had filed an emergency motion claiming I was mentally unstable and a danger to the property. "They can't keep you out forever," Diane said as we pulled into her driveway. "Carlos said the injunction is temporary." I didn't answer. My hip throbbed with every breath. The ER doctor had confirmed no fractures, but deep tissue bruising took months to heal. At my age, months felt like forever. Inside, Diane's living room was smaller than my bedroom at the estate. She'd set up the pull-out couch with fresh sheets. A glass of water and my pain medication sat on the side table, next to a new cane. Aluminum, adjustable, nothing like the one Brooke had broken. "Dylan called 4 times while you were being examined," Diane said, hanging up our coats. I didn't answer. What did he want? He left voicemails. She pulled out her phone and handed it to me. "You should listen." I pressed play on the first message. Mom, it's me. Look, I know today was confusing, but Brooke's lawyers are saying there's been a misunderstanding. They have evidence that Carlos Mendez isn't even a real investigator. He's a private detective Aunt Diane hired to harass Brooke. We need to talk. Please call me back. The second message was longer. Mom, Brooke made bail. Her attorney is Leonard Whitmore. He's one of the best criminal defense lawyers in Illinois. He's looking into Carlos's background, and apparently, there are some serious questions about his credentials. Also, the state's attorney hasn't officially charged Brooke with anything yet. They're just questioning her. Mom, I think Aunt Diane has been feeding you false information. Dad's death was natural. You know that. Please, just come home so we can sort this out. I deleted both messages without listening to the other two. He doesn't believe it, I said quietly. Diane took her phone back. He will. Give him time. But time was the one thing I was running out of. The next morning, I woke to my phone ringing. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. Same number. On the third call, I answered. Mrs. Sullivan? A woman's voice, professional but cold. This is Jennifer Park from Whitmore and Associates. I'm calling on behalf of our client, Brooke Sullivan. We're prepared to offer you a settlement. I sat up too quickly. Pain shot through my hip. A settlement? $1 million, tax-free, in exchange for a signed statement confirming that James Sullivan died of natural causes and that you have no reason to believe Mrs. Brooke Sullivan was involved in his death in any way. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. You're offering me money to lie. We're offering you financial security, Mrs. Sullivan. We understand you're living with your sister-in-law currently, that your arthritis medication costs approximately $800 per month, that your late husband's estate is frozen pending investigation, which means you have no access to funds. My hands were shaking. How do you know what my medication costs? We've done our research. You have until Friday at 5 p.m. to accept. After that, the offer is withdrawn, and we proceed with our countersuit. Countersuit? Defamation, Mrs. Sullivan. Emotional distress. Conspiracy to commit fraud. We're seeking $5 million in damages. Jennifer Park's voice didn't change tone. She could have been ordering coffee. You don't have $5 million, but we can attach your Social Security benefits, your late husband's pension, any future inheritance. We can make sure you spend your remaining years in debt. The line went dead. I sat on Diane's pull-out couch, staring at my phone. Outside, garbage trucks rumbled past. Someone's dog barked. Normal morning sounds in a normal neighborhood. Everything in my life had stopped being normal 4 months ago when James collapsed in our kitchen. I'd been making his coffee. French press the way he liked it. He'd been reading the Tribune at the breakfast table, complaining about property taxes. Then he'd made a small sound. Not quite a gasp, just a surprised, "Oh," and slumped forward. By the time the paramedics arrived, he was gone. Massive heart attack, the ER doctor said. Common in men his age. Nothing anyone could have done. Brooke had been at the gym. Dylan had been in surgery at Northwestern. I'd ridden alone in the ambulance, holding James's hand, talking to him even though I knew he couldn't hear me anymore. At the hospital, Brooke had arrived in her workout clothes, mascara running, sobbing into Dylan's shoulder. I should have been there, she'd kept saying. I should have been there. I'd believed her grief was real. Carlos showed up at Diane's townhouse that afternoon. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt instead of his work jacket. Without the groundskeeper costume, he looked different, older, more serious. "Can I come in?" he asked. Diane made coffee while Carlos sat across from me at her kitchen table. He pulled out a manila folder and set it between us. "Brooke's lawyers contacted you," he said. Not a question. "How did you know?" "Because that's what they do. Whitmore is expensive, which means Brooke has access to serious money. Money she shouldn't have, considering her fitness influencer career brings in maybe $40,000 a year." I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, screenshots of text messages, all time-stamped, all annotated with yellow highlighting. "This is from Brooke's personal accounts," Carlos said. "Notice the deposit starting 8 months before James died. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, always in cash, always noted as consulting fees. Consulting for what? That's what we're trying to determine. But look at this. He pulled out a printed email. This is from Brooke to a company called Apex Wellness Solutions. She's ordering supplements, large quantities, things like yohimbine, ephedra, bitter orange extract. I don't understand. They're all stimulants. Individually, they're legal. Combined, in high enough doses, they can trigger cardiac events, especially in someone with an undiagnosed heart condition. My mouth went dry. James didn't have a heart condition. According to his doctor, no. But that's the thing about these substances. They work on anyone if you give them enough. And if you give them slowly, over time, they build up in the system. By the time symptoms appear, it looks like natural causes. Diane set coffee cups in front of us. Her hand was shaking slightly. You're saying Brooke poisoned James. I'm saying the medical examiner is exhuming James's body next week. If we find traces of these substances in his tissue samples, combined with the financial motive and the documentary evidence, we have a case. I couldn't look at the folder anymore. I pushed it back toward Carlos. Dylan doesn't believe any of this. He thinks you're a fraud. Dylan is married to a woman who stood to inherit $50 million. Of course he doesn't want to believe it. Carlos took a sip of coffee. But he's going to have to choose. And soon. Brooke's lawyers offered me money, I said. $1 million to sign a statement saying James died naturally. Did you take it? No. Good. Because the moment you sign that, you become an accessory. And they know it. Carlos closed the folder. Emma, these people are not playing games. Brooke has already tried to have you declared mentally incompetent. Whitmore filed the petition yesterday. The hearing is next Wednesday. I felt the room tilt. On what grounds? They're claiming you have dementia, that you've been experiencing memory loss, paranoid delusions, inability to manage daily tasks. They have a psychiatrist prepared to testify. Someone Brooke paid $15,000 for an evaluation you never sat for. Diane slammed her coffee cup down. That's fraud. Yes, but it'll take months to prove. In the meantime, if the judge grants the petition, Brooke and Dylan get control of the estate, and you get nothing. I looked at Carlos, this man who'd spent 8 months pretending to trim hedges and rake leaves. Why are you helping me? He was quiet for a moment. Your sister-in-law hired me because she had a bad feeling. That's not usually enough to build a case. But when I started watching Brooke, I saw patterns. The way she isolated James from his friends, the way she controlled his schedule, the way she made sure she was always the one preparing his vitamins, his protein shakes, his coffee, I said quietly. Carlos nodded. His coffee, always French press, always made by her those last 3 months. I remembered. Brooke had insisted on taking over breakfast duties, said she wanted to help out, give me a break. James had been pleased. He'd said Brooke was finally acting like family. What do I do? I asked. Carlos leaned forward. You fight. You let me finish the investigation. You trust that the truth will come out. He paused. And you stay away from Dylan until this is over. He's my son. He's married to a woman who killed his father, and until he accepts that, he's not safe to be around. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hip hurt too much to lie flat, and the painkillers made me dizzy. I sat in Diane's kitchen with a heating pad and scrolled through photos on my phone. James at Dylan's medical school graduation. James teaching Dylan to fish. James walking Dylan down the aisle at his wedding to Brooke. In every photo, James was smiling. I stopped on one from 6 months before he died, a family dinner at the estate. Brooke had insisted on taking the picture. James sat at the head of the table, looking thinner than I remembered. His face was slightly gray. I'd thought he was just tired. I zoomed in on the photo. On the table in front of him was his coffee mug, the blue ceramic one Brooke always used for his French press. My phone buzzed. Text from Dylan. Mom, please call me. Brooke is scared. This is all a huge mistake. We need to talk before her lawyers do something we all regret. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, listening to the heating pad hum. Outside, a car door slammed. Footsteps on the sidewalk. Then silence. The competency hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Wednesday at the Cook County Courthouse. I wore the navy dress from James's memorial. It was the only formal clothing I had at Diane's townhouse. Everything else was locked inside the Lake Forest estate. My closet, my photos, 43 years of marriage stored in rooms I couldn't access. Diane drove. Neither of us spoke much. Carlos had prepared me for what to expect. Brooke's psychiatrist would testify I showed signs of dementia. Dylan would likely be called as a witness. The judge would ask me questions designed to test my memory, my reasoning, my ability to manage basic tasks. Don't get defensive, Carlos had warned. Don't get emotional. Just answer clearly and honestly. But when we arrived at the courthouse, Carlos was waiting outside with news that changed everything. Hearing's been postponed, he said. Whitmore filed for a continuance, claims they need more time to gather medical evidence. That's good, right? Diane asked. Carlos shook his head. It's a stalling tactic. They're waiting for something. I don't know what yet. We stood on the courthouse steps as lawyers and defendants flowed around us. I watched a young woman in handcuffs being led inside, her public defender trailing behind with a worn briefcase. What do I do now? I asked. Go home. Stay low. Let me work. Carlos handed me a burner phone. Use this if you need to reach me. Don't use your regular phone for anything sensitive. I looked at the cheap flip phone in my hand. You think they're listening? I think Brooke has $50 million reasons to know everything you're doing. Back at Diane's townhouse, I tried calling Dylan. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried texting from my regular phone. No response. At 2 p.m., I called Northwestern Memorial and asked for Dr. Dylan Sullivan's office. His secretary answered on the second ring. I'm sorry, but Dr. Sullivan is on medical leave, she said. I can transfer you to Dr. Patterson if this is regarding a patient. Medical leave? Since when? I'm not at liberty to discuss Dr. Sullivan's personal matters. Can I help you with something else? I hung up. Dylan had been an orthopedic surgeon for 12 years. He'd never taken medical leave. Not when he had the flu. Not when he broke his wrist skiing. Not ever. I tried his cell again. Voicemail. Then I tried his house phone. The landline at the Lake Forest estate. Brooke answered on the third ring. Emma. Her voice was cold, professional. Dylan doesn't want to talk to you right now. Where is he? He's resting. The stress of your false accusations has taken a toll on his health. His therapist recommended time away from toxic family members. I gripped the phone tighter. Let me talk to my son. No. The word was flat. Final. Dylan has made his choice. He's protecting his family, which means protecting himself from your delusions. I'm not delusional. The psychiatric evaluation says otherwise. Dr. Reinhardt was very thorough in his assessment. I never met Dr. Reinhardt. That's not what the paperwork says. I could hear the smile in her voice. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call with Leonard. We're discussing the defamation suit. I believe we're adding Diane to the list of defendants. Something about conspiracy to harass. The line went dead. I sat on Diane's couch, holding the silent phone. Outside, children were playing in the street. Someone was grilling. The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid drifted through the window. Normal life, continuing without me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hip ached. The heating pad had stopped working. I lay in the dark, listening to Diane's refrigerator hum, and thought about the last time I'd seen my granddaughter. Sophia was 7. She had James's eyes, bright blue, always asking questions. Before James died, she'd spent every Saturday at our house. We'd bake cookies, do puzzles, read books in the library. After the funeral, Brooke had cut off contact. Too confusing for Sophia, she'd explained. She needs stability right now, not reminders of death. I hadn't seen Sophia in 4 months. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to Diane's home office. She'd left her laptop open on the desk. I typed Brooke Sullivan into Google. The first results were her Instagram account. 212,000 followers. Photos of her in workout clothes, promoting supplements and protein powders. Sponsored posts for activewear brands. Videos of her doing yoga poses on beaches. I scrolled back through her posts. Back to before she married Dylan. Back to when she was just another fitness influencer trying to build a brand. There was a pattern I hadn't noticed before. Every 6 months, she'd post about a new mentor or business partner. Always older men, always wealthy, based on the backgrounds of the photos. expensive homes, luxury cars, yacht clubs. One man appeared frequently in photos from 2019. Harrison Chen, silver hair, expensive watch, standing next to Brooke at what looked like a charity gala. I searched Harrison Chen Chicago. The first result was an obituary from 2020. Harrison Chen, 68, passed away unexpectedly on March 15, 2020, at his home in Winnetka. He is survived by his wife, Margaret, and 2 sons. I clicked through to the full obituary. Services will be held at. Then I searched Harrison Chen death cause. Nothing came up. No news articles, no police reports. Just the obituary and a few memorial posts on Facebook. I went back to Brooke's Instagram. The photos with Harrison Chen stopped in February 2020, 1 month before he died. I kept searching. Another man, Robert Kelman, appeared in Brooke's photos from 2018. Real estate developer. Died in 2019 at age 71. A third man, Dennis Park, investment banker. Died in 2017 at age 65. 3 wealthy older men, all dead within 2 years of appearing in Brooke's social media. My hands were shaking as I screenshotted everything. At 7 a.m., I called Carlos on the burner phone. I found something, I said. He arrived 30 minutes later with coffee and a yellow legal pad. I showed him everything. The Instagram posts, the obituaries, the pattern. Carlos took notes without speaking. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. This changes things, he said. Can you investigate them? The other deaths? I can try. But Emma, these men died in different jurisdictions, different years. Getting those cases reopened will take months, maybe years. But it proves she's done this before. It suggests a pattern. That's not the same as proof. Carlos tapped his pen against the legal pad, but it might be enough to get the FBI involved. If this is a serial case, it becomes federal. How long will that take? Longer than we have. The exhumation results come back Friday. If they're inconclusive, the state's attorney might drop the case against Brooke. And if that happens, she walks. I looked at the screenshots on Diane's laptop. 3 men, all dead, all forgotten. What about their families? I asked. Did any of them suspect? I'll find out. But Emma, you need to be prepared for the possibility that even if we prove James was murdered, we might not be able to prove Brooke did it. Not beyond reasonable doubt. Then what? Then you win the estate battle, but Brooke stays free. The thought made me sick. Wednesday afternoon, Diane had to work. I stayed at the townhouse alone, going through James's papers, the files I'd managed to grab before being locked out of the estate. Most of it was standard. Tax returns, investment statements, property deeds. Then I found a manila envelope I didn't recognize. No label, just tucked into the back of James's filing cabinet. Inside was a life insurance policy, Sullivan Family Trust. Primary beneficiary, Brooke Sullivan. Death benefit, $12,000. The signature date was May 15, 2024, 3 months before James died. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. James and I had life insurance, but it was old. A $500,000 policy from the 1990s with me as the sole beneficiary. This was different. This was new. And the beneficiary was wrong. I grabbed the burner phone and called Carlos. I found another policy, $12 million. Brooke is the beneficiary. Silence on the other end. Carlos, when was it issued? May, 3 months before James died. And he never mentioned it to you. Never. More silence. Then, Emma, I need you to bring that policy to me. Right now. Don't let it out of your sight. Why? What does this mean? It means Brooke didn't just inherit through the estate. She got a direct payout. $12 million, tax-free, the moment James died. Carlos's voice was tight. And it means she had $12 million reasons to kill him sooner rather than later. I looked at the policy in my hands. James's signature at the bottom, next to a notary stamp. Carlos, this doesn't make sense. James would never have signed this without telling me. Then either he was coerced, or that's not his signature. I stared at the document. The signature looked right. James's distinctive J, the way the S curved into the rest of Sullivan. But something about it felt wrong. I'm coming to you, I said. Where are you? Carlos gave me an address in Lincoln Park. Don't take your car. Take an Uber. Pay cash. And Emma? Watch to make sure no one follows you. I hung up and looked around Diane's townhouse. Suddenly, the walls felt thin, the windows too exposed. I folded the policy carefully and put it in my purse. Then I walked to the window and looked outside. A black SUV was parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running. It hadn't been there this morning. I stepped back from the window, my heart pounding. The burner phone rang. Don't go outside, Carlos said. They're watching the house. I'm coming to you. How did you know? Because I just got a call from Whitmore's office. They're filing an emergency motion to have you detained for psychiatric evaluation. They claim you're a danger to yourself and others. When? The hearing is in 2 hours. I sank onto the couch, still holding the insurance policy. Carlos, they're going to lock me up. Not if we move first. Stay inside. Lock the doors. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. I sat in Diane's living room, watching the black SUV through the curtains. My phone buzzed. My regular phone, not the burner. Text from Dylan. Mom, please turn yourself in. Brooke says you've been making threats. I don't want to see you arrested. Just go to the hospital voluntarily. They can help you. I turned off the phone. Outside, a second SUV pulled up behind the first. 2 men in suits got out. They stood on the sidewalk, looking at Diane's front door. Not moving, not leaving. Just watching. Carlos arrived in an unmarked sedan, not through the front door. He came through Diane's back gate, moving quickly across the yard. I watched from the kitchen window as he checked the alley, then knocked 3 times on the back door. I let him in. The SUVs? I asked. Private security. Whitmore hired them to document your movements. They're hoping you'll do something they can use in court. Leave the house, confront Brooke, anything that looks unstable. He locked the door behind him. How long have they been there? Since this morning. Maybe earlier. Carlos pulled out his phone and made a call. Yeah, it's me. I need a pickup at the Evanston address. Back alley. 15 minutes. He hung up and turned to me. We're leaving. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't find you. Not until after the exhumation results come back. He saw the insurance policy on the kitchen table. Is that it? I handed it to him. He examined it under the overhead light, holding it at different angles. Then he pulled out his phone and took several photos. This signature bothers me. It looks like James's handwriting. It looks close. But see here? He pointed to the capital J. James always made a little hook at the top. Every document I've seen. Marriage certificate, property deeds, his will. The hook is always there. This J is smooth. I looked closer. He was right. The J was almost perfect, but not quite. It's a forgery, I said. Probably. But proving it will require a handwriting expert, and that takes time we don't have. Carlos folded the policy and put it in his jacket. The good news is that this gives us leverage. If Brooke collected $12 million under a forged policy, that's insurance fraud, federal crime. The insurance company will want to investigate. Will they help us? They'll help themselves. But right now, their interests align with ours. He checked his watch. We have 12 minutes before my contact arrives. I need you to pack a bag. 1 change of clothes, medications, nothing else. Carlos, I can't just disappear. Diane doesn't even know. Diane knows. I called her 20 minutes ago. She's meeting us at the safe location. He looked at me directly. Emma, if you stay here, they'll have you committed by tonight. Once you're in psychiatric hold, it takes 72 hours minimum to get released. By then, the exhumation results will be out. And if they're not conclusive, the case falls apart. So I'm running. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. I went to the guest room and packed 1 pair of jeans, 2 shirts, my medications, the heating pad for my hip. Everything fit in a canvas tote bag Diane kept in the closet. When I came back to the kitchen, Carlos was on his phone again, speaking quietly. Right. 2 blocks north. Blue sedan. Got it. A car horn beeped twice in the alley. That's us, Carlos said. We went out the back door. The blue sedan was idling at the curb, exhaust steaming in the cold air. The driver was a woman in her 40s, dark hair pulled back, wearing a police jacket. Mrs. Sullivan, she said as I got in the back seat. I'm Detective Sarah Chen, Illinois State Police. Carlos has briefed me on your situation. Carlos got in the passenger seat. Go. We pulled away from the curb. I looked back through the rear window. The black SUVs were still parked in front of Diane's townhouse. They hadn't seen us leave. Where are we going? I asked. Someplace Brooke's lawyers can't reach you, Detective Chen said. A safe house in Oak Park. It's registered under a different name. No connection to you or Diane. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then Carlos turned around to face me. Emma, I need to tell you something. And I need you to stay calm. My hands went cold. What? I haven't been completely honest about who I am. He pulled out his wallet and showed me a badge. My full name is Carlos Mendez. I'm a licensed private investigator, yes, but I also work as a contractor for the Cook County State's attorney, specifically for cases involving financial exploitation of the elderly. I stared at the badge. You're a cop. Not exactly. I'm more like a consultant. The state's attorney brings me in when they suspect elder abuse but don't have enough evidence for a criminal case yet. I gather information, build profiles, document patterns. How long have you known about Brooke? 8 months? Your sister-in-law Diane contacted me last March. She said her brother seemed off, losing weight, sleeping more, getting confused, and she noticed Brooke was very controlling about his schedule, his food, his medications. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure you'd believe me, and I needed to see the dynamic for myself. See if Brooke acted differently when she thought she was being watched. I felt anger rising in my chest. You used me as bait. I used the situation to gather evidence. There's a difference. Carlos's voice was steady. Emma, if I'd told you everything up front, you might have confronted Brooke. And if you'd done that, she would have covered her tracks. We'd have nothing. Detective Chen turned onto the highway. Carlos has been recording Brooke for the past 6 months. Audio, video, everything. We have her on tape discussing the estate, the life insurance, the memorial service. What did she say? Carlos pulled out a small digital recorder and pressed play. Brooke's voice filled the car. Clear. Unmistakable. The old bitch won't last long anyway. She's got arthritis, high blood pressure, probably early dementia. One more push and she'll crack. Another voice. Male. Younger. What kind of push? I don't know. Public humiliation works well. Make her look crazy in front of witnesses. Then we file for competency review. Get control of the estate before she can fight back. What about Dylan? Dylan does what I tell him. He always has. Carlos stopped the recording. That was from 3 weeks ago. Brooke was talking to her personal trainer. Guy named Marcus Webb. He's also her lover. I felt sick. Dylan doesn't know. Dylan knows what Brooke wants him to know, which right now is that you're mentally ill and trying to destroy his marriage. Carlos put the recorder away. We have 17 hours of recordings. Brooke discussing how to manipulate the will, how to forge your husband's signature, how to make James's death look natural. Does she admit to killing him? Not directly. She's careful with her words, but she makes references to helping things along and accelerating the timeline. Combined with the physical evidence, the supplements, the forged insurance policy, the financial motive, it's enough to build a case. Detective Chen pulled off the highway. We're almost there. We drove through Oak Park's tree-lined streets. The houses were older here, Victorian and craftsman style, well-maintained but not ostentatious, the kind of neighborhood where people kept to themselves. The safe house was a 2-story bungalow with a small front porch. No cars in the driveway, curtains drawn. Diane was waiting inside. She hugged me the moment I walked through the door. Are you okay? I don't know what I am. The house was furnished but impersonal. Generic couch, generic coffee table, walls painted builder beige. Detective Chen disappeared into the kitchen to make coffee. Carlos spread the insurance policy on the dining room table. This is our strongest piece of evidence. $12 million, forged signature, paid out within 48 hours of James's death. The insurance company will want to cooperate. Have you contacted them? Diane asked. Not yet. I wanted Emma somewhere safe first. I'll make the call tonight. Carlos looked at me. But Emma, I need you to understand something. Even with this evidence, even with the recordings, Brooke might not go to prison. She has expensive lawyers. She has public sympathy. She's young, beautiful, and she'll play the victim. Juries are unpredictable. What about Dylan? I asked. Is he part of this? Carlos hesitated. The recordings suggest he's not. Brooke talks about him like he's a tool she's using, not a partner. But Emma, he's chosen to believe her over you. That's not going to change easily. I thought about my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd become a surgeon because he wanted to help people, the husband who couldn't see that his wife was a killer. Can I call him? I asked. Not from your phone. It's too easy to track. Carlos handed me the burner. Use this. But Emma, be careful what you say. If Brooke's listening, anything you tell Dylan will be used against you. I took the phone and went into the bedroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed and dialed Dylan's number. He answered on the first ring. Mom? His voice broke something inside me. Dylan, I need you to listen. Just listen. Don't interrupt. Don't hang up. Just listen. Silence. Then, I'm listening. Your father didn't die of natural causes. He was poisoned. Slowly, over months. Brooke did it. She forged his signature on a $12 million life insurance policy. She's been planning this for at least a year. And she's manipulating you to think I'm crazy so she can control the estate and keep the money. More silence. Dylan, I know you don't want to believe it. I know you love her. But I need you to look at the evidence. I need you to talk to Carlos Mendez. I need you to see what I've seen. Mom, his voice was strained. Mom, Brooke told me you'd say this. She said you'd accuse her of horrible things because you're jealous. Because you can't accept that Dad loved her like a daughter. Dad never loved her like a daughter. He tolerated her because you married her. And Dylan, she's killing you too. Just slower. What? Why are you on medical leave? Why did your doctor tell you to take time off? What reason did Brooke give you? I've been tired, stressed. Brooke said, Dylan, have you been drinking the protein shakes she makes you? What does that have to do with? Have you? Yes. Every morning. She says they're good for energy. Stop drinking them. Today, right now, and go to your doctor. Not the one Brooke picked. Your old doctor. Dr. Patterson. Get a full blood panel. Check for toxins. Check for heavy metals. Check for anything unusual. Mom, you sound paranoid. I sound like someone who knows her daughter-in-law is a serial killer. Dylan, 3 other men died after getting involved with Brooke. Harrison Chen in 2020, Robert Kalman in 2019, Dennis Park in 2017, all of them wealthy. All of them dead within 2 years of meeting her. Look them up, look at the pattern, then ask yourself if I'm really the crazy one here. The line went quiet for a long time. Dylan, I have to go. Dylan, please. I said I have to go. He hung up. I sat on the bed, holding the dead phone. Through the door, I could hear Carlos and Diane talking in low voices. Detective Chen's radio crackled with police dispatch. Outside, the sun was setting. The bedroom window faced west. An orange light filled the room. I thought about James, about the morning he died. The way he'd looked at me over his coffee cup, the small smile he'd given me before he'd said, "Best coffee I've had in weeks." Brooke had made that coffee, and I'd let her. Dylan called back at 11 p.m. I was lying in the dark bedroom of the safe house, unable to sleep despite the pain medication. When the burner phone rang, I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail. But it was Dylan. I went to Dr. Patterson, he said without preamble. Did the blood work. I sat up, my heart pounding. And? He found elevated levels of yohimbine and synephrine. Said they're stimulants. Asked if I was taking supplements I hadn't disclosed. Dylan's voice was strained, thin. Mom, I don't take supplements. I never have. The only thing I've been drinking is the protein shakes Brooke makes. I closed my eyes. Did you tell Dr. Patterson that? Yes. He wants to report it. He says those levels are high enough to cause cardiac events. He says if I'd kept drinking them. Dylan stopped. Mom, what do I do? You come here, tonight. You don't tell Brooke where you're going. You don't pack a bag. You just get in your car and drive. I can't just leave. Sophia is here. She's asleep upstairs. Bring her. Mom, if I take Sophia and disappear, Brooke will call the police. She'll say I kidnapped my own daughter. Then we call the police first. We show them Dr. Patterson's lab results. We tell them everything. Silence on the line. Then, I need time to think. Dylan, you don't have time. If Brooke realizes you went to a doctor, if she knows you're questioning her, you're in danger. She wouldn't hurt me. I'm her husband. Dad was her meal ticket and she killed him. You're her backup plan. The moment you become a liability, you're next. I heard something in the background. A door closing. Footsteps. I have to go, Dylan whispered. Dylan. The line went dead. I sat in the dark for a long time, holding the silent phone. Carlos knocked on my door at 6:00 a.m. Dylan called you last night, he said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because Dylan called his lawyer at 6:45 a.m. and asked what would happen if he filed for divorce. The lawyer called Whitmore to give him a heads up. Whitmore called Detective Chen to threaten obstruction charges if we're harassing his client's husband. Dylan went to his doctor. They found the same stimulants in his blood, the ones Brooke was using on James. Carlos leaned against the doorframe. That's good. That means Dylan is waking up. But it also means we're running out of time. If Brooke realizes Dylan suspects her, she'll accelerate whatever endgame she has planned. What do you mean endgame? I mean she's not stupid. She knows the exhumation is happening today. She knows the state's attorney is building a case. If James's body shows the same toxins we found in Dylan's blood, she goes to prison. Unless what? Unless she has a way to flip the narrative, make herself the victim. Make you the villain. Carlos pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. This was posted on Brooke's Instagram 2 hours ago. It was a photo of Brooke in a hospital gown, IV in her arm, looking pale and exhausted. The caption read, "After everything I've been through, false accusations, harassment, threats, I ended up in the ER last night, stress-induced heart palpitations. Doctors say I need to step back from the chaos for my health. But I won't stop fighting for the truth about James. Justice. For James. Family. Betrayal." The post had 47,000 likes. "She's staging a breakdown," I said. "Worse, she's building a defense. When the evidence comes out, she'll claim you and Diane drove her to a mental health crisis. That the accusations were so traumatic she couldn't function. She'll say anything found in James's body was there because you poisoned him and framed her. That's insane. It's reasonable doubt. That's all she needs." I looked at the photo again. Brooke's face was perfectly composed, vulnerable but strong. The lighting was professional. This wasn't a candid hospital shot. This was staged. "What do we do?" I asked. "We make her confess. On record. In a way she can't walk back." Carlos's plan was simple but dangerous. I would reach out to Brooke and Dylan, propose a family dinner. A chance to reconcile, to talk through our differences like adults. Neutral location, public place, just the four of us. "She won't come," I said. "She knows it's a trap. She'll come because her ego won't let her stay away. She thinks she's untouchable. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else." Carlos spread a map across the dining room table. "We'll hold it at Café Luxembourg, French restaurant in Lincoln Park. High-end, public enough that she'll feel safe, private enough that she can talk freely. And you'll be recording. We'll wire the entire table, audio and video. Detective Chen will be at the next table over with a laptop. Everything Brooke says will be transmitted live to the state's attorney's office. What if she doesn't say anything incriminating? Then we push her, we ask questions, we present evidence, we make her defensive. When people get defensive, they make mistakes." Diane was pacing by the window. "Emma, this is dangerous. If Brooke realizes what's happening, if she figures out she's being recorded, then we have nothing," I finished. "We let her walk away with $50 million and my husband's murder goes unpunished." Diane stopped pacing. "Okay, when?" "Tonight, before the exhumation results are released, before Whitmore files any more motions, before Brooke has time to prepare." Carlos looked at me. "Are you ready for this?" I thought about James, about the morning he died, about 43 years of marriage ending in a cup of poisoned coffee. "I'm ready." I called Dylan from a restaurant payphone at noon, didn't want the call traced back to the safe house. He answered on the 4th ring. "Mom, I want to have dinner. You, me, Brooke, and Diane. Tonight at 7. Café Luxembourg. Just to talk. No lawyers, no police, just family. I don't think that's a good idea. Dylan, we can't keep going like this. We need to talk face to face. Clear the air. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. I'm not asking for anything except a conversation. Can you do that for me? A long pause. Then, I'll ask Brooke. Tell her I'm ready to apologize. Tell her I was wrong about the accusations. Tell her whatever you need to tell her to get her there. Mom, please. Just this one thing. He sighed. I'll call you back. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Dylan. We'll be there. 7 o'clock. But Mom, if this is some kind of ambush... It's not. I promise. It's just dinner. After I hung up, Carlos gave me a small device the size of a button. This goes under your collar. Don't touch it during dinner. Don't adjust it. Just forget it's there. I pinned it carefully to my shirt, hidden beneath the fabric. What if she searches me? She won't. This is a public restaurant. She'll assume she's safe. At 6:30 p.m., Diane and I drove to Lincoln Park. Carlos and Detective Chen followed in a separate car. The restaurant was elegant but not ostentatious. White tablecloths, soft lighting, a piano player in the corner. We arrived first. The table was in the back corner, exactly as Carlos had requested. Good acoustics, clear sightlines. Detective Chen sat 2 tables away with a laptop, pretending to work. She was wearing business casual and looked like any other professional having a working dinner. At 6:55 p.m., Dylan and Brooke walked in. Brooke looked stunning. Black dress, perfect makeup, hair blown out and glossy. She moved through the restaurant like she owned it, smiling at the host, touching Dylan's arm possessively. When she saw me, her smile didn't waver. Emma, she said warmly, thank you for suggesting this. We really do need to talk. She hugged me. I forced myself not to recoil. We sat down. Dylan looked exhausted. His eyes were red-rimmed and he'd lost weight. The stimulants were taking their toll, even though he'd stopped drinking the shakes. You look tired, I said to him. I haven't been sleeping well. Too much stress, Brooke said, putting her hand over his. We've both been under so much pressure. These false accusations, the investigation, the media attention. It's been a nightmare. Diane stiffened beside me but said nothing. The waiter came. We ordered. Wine for them, water for me. My arthritis medication didn't mix well with alcohol. So, Brooke said once the waiter left, you wanted to talk. Let's talk. I looked at Dylan first. I want to start by saying I'm sorry. Sorry that this situation has become so painful. Sorry that our family is falling apart. We're not falling apart, Brooke said quickly. We're just going through a difficult transition. James's death was hard on everyone. It was murder, Diane said flatly. Brooke's smile tightened. There's no evidence of that. The police have been investigating for weeks. If there was anything suspicious, they would have charged me by now. The exhumation results come back tomorrow, I said, and they'll show exactly what the original autopsy showed. Natural causes. Heart attack. James was 74 years old, Emma. These things happen. He was healthy. He exercised. He watched his diet. He was also under stress, financial stress. He'd made some bad investments, lost a lot of money. Brooke leaned forward. Did you know that? Did you know he'd lost almost $2 million in the 6 months before he died? I stared at her. That's not true. It is true. Check the investment accounts. He was hemorrhaging money, and he was ashamed. He didn't want you to know, didn't want Dylan to know, so he kept it secret. Brooke's voice was gentle, concerned. Emma, I think the stress of that secret is what killed him. Not me, not poison, just the weight of failure. You're lying. I'm not. I have the account statements. His financial advisor can confirm everything. James was desperate, and desperation does terrible things to a person's heart. Dylan was staring at his water glass. He hadn't said a word. Dylan, I said, you've seen the accounts. Is this true? I don't know. Brooke handles most of the finances now. Because someone had to, Brooke said. After James died, everything was chaos. Bills unpaid, accounts frozen. I stepped in to help. That's all I've been doing, Emma. Helping. And you've repaid me by accusing me of murder. You forged the life insurance policy. I said. Brooke's face went very still. What? The $12 million policy. James's signature is forged. The handwriting doesn't match. That's absurd. James signed that policy in front of a notary. I have the documentation. Then you'll have no problem showing it to the state's attorney. I'll show it to whoever I need to show it to. I have nothing to hide. Brooke took a sip of wine. But Emma, let me ask you something. Why would I kill James? He loved me. He was going to leave everything to Dylan and me anyway. Why would I risk prison when I was going to inherit eventually regardless? Because eventually wasn't fast enough. Because you wanted the money now. Because you have a pattern. A pattern? Harrison Chen, Robert Kallman, Dennis Park, 3 wealthy older men, all dead within 2 years of being photographed with you. For the first time, Brooke's composure cracked, just for a second. Her eyes went sharp. Those men were friends, mentors. Their deaths were tragic, but unrelated. Unrelated? Diane pulled out her phone and showed Brooke a spreadsheet. 3 men, all sudden cardiac events, all within 18 months of meeting you, all leaving money to family members you'd befriended. That's not a pattern. That's a signature. Brooke set down her wine glass carefully. You know what this is? This is slander. This is harassment. This is 2 bitter old women who can't accept that a younger, more beautiful woman was welcomed into their family. I welcomed you, I said quietly. I loved you like a daughter. You tolerated me. You never thought I was good enough for Dylan. You thought I was trash, gold digger, social climber. Brooke's voice rose slightly. But you know what? I made Dylan happy. I gave him the life he deserved. A real partner. Not some doormat who spent 40 years ironing shirts and packing lunches. Dylan looked up. Brooke, that's enough. No, it's not enough. These women have been trying to destroy me for months. They've hired investigators. They've poisoned you against me. They've turned this entire situation into a witch hunt. And for what? Money? Control? Because they can't stand the fact that James loved me more than he loved his own wife? The words hit like a slap. James never loved you, I said. He tolerated you. For Dylan's sake. You're wrong. James told me things he never told you. He confided in me. He trusted me. Those last few months, I was the only one he could talk to. The only one who understood him. Brooke leaned across the table. And yes, Emma, I helped him. I made sure he was comfortable. I made sure he didn't suffer. Because that's what love is. Making the hard choices so someone you care about doesn't have to. The restaurant had gone quiet. Diane's eyes were wide. What did you just say? Brooke blinked, realized. I meant I took care of him. Medical care. Comfort. Not, you said you made sure he didn't suffer, Diane pressed. What does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. I'm just upset. You're twisting my words. Dylan was looking at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Brooke, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I loved your father. I took care of him. That's all. The protein shakes, Dylan said slowly. You made him protein shakes. Every morning. Just like you make mine. Because they're healthy. Because you both needed... Dr. Patterson found stimulants in my blood, levels high enough to cause heart failure. Dylan's voice was shaking. Did you put those in Dad's shakes too? Brooke stood up. I'm not doing this. This is entrapment. This is... Detective Chen stood up at her table, held up her badge. Brooke Sullivan, please sit down. This conversation is being recorded and transmitted to the Cook County State's Attorney. Anything you say is being monitored. Brooke went white. All around us, I realized, were people in plain clothes. More detectives. More recorders. We weren't having a private dinner. We were in the middle of a sting operation. You set me up, Brooke said, looking at me. You lying bitch. You set me up. She didn't kill him, Detective Chen said calmly. You did. Brooke was arrested at the restaurant. Detective Chen read her rights while patrons recorded on their phones. By midnight, the video was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. The same platform Brooke had used to build her brand now documented her downfall. The exhumation results came back Saturday morning. James's tissue samples showed lethal concentrations of yohimbine and synephrine. The medical examiner ruled it homicide by poisoning. The state's attorney filed formal charges: first-degree murder, insurance fraud, forgery, attempted murder of Dylan Sullivan. Brooke's bail was set at $5 million. She couldn't make it. Dylan moved into the safe house with me and Diane on Sunday. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His hands shook when he poured coffee. He couldn't sleep without medication. Dr. Patterson had him on a strict detox protocol, activated charcoal, IV fluids, constant monitoring. "I should have seen it," he said on the third morning. We were sitting at the kitchen table, watching sunrise through the window. All the signs were there. The way she controlled everything. The way she isolated Dad from his friends. How she always insisted on making his food. "She was good at hiding," I said. "That's what predators do. I believed her over you. My own mother." His voice broke. "I let her make you think you were crazy. I didn't defend you when she kicked your cane. I didn't help you up off that floor." I reached across the table and took his hand. "You were manipulated. She's been doing this for years. You're not the first person she fooled. That doesn't make it okay? No, but it makes it understandable." We sat in silence for a while. Outside, Carlos was trimming hedges, real gardening this time, not surveillance. He'd told me last night he was retiring from investigative work. Said this case had taken too much out of him. "What happens now?" Dylan asked. "Now we rebuild." The estate unlocked 2 weeks later. I walked through the Lake Forest house for the first time in a month. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. James's reading glasses on the side table, his coffee mug in the dishwasher, the newspaper he'd been reading the morning he died still folded on the breakfast table. Dylan came with me. We walked through room by room, neither of us speaking much. In the master bedroom, I found the French press Brooke had used, blue ceramic, sitting clean and empty on the dresser. I picked it up, felt its weight in my hands. Then I threw it in the trash. "Good," Dylan said. We donated most of Brooke's belongings to charity. Her designer clothes, her yoga mats, her supplements and protein powders. The only thing we kept was Sophia's artwork. Crayon drawings of her grandfather, stick figures holding hands. Sophia moved in with us permanently in April. The custody hearing was brief. Brooke's parental rights were terminated. She didn't fight it. Her lawyers advised cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. 25 years. Eligible for parole in 18. Sophia was too young to understand everything. We told her that her mother had made very bad choices and needed to go away for a long time, that sometimes adults do things that hurt people, even people they're supposed to love. She asked if I was going to leave too. "Never," I told her. "I'm not going anywhere." Dylan went back to work in June, but he cut his hours. He wanted more time with Sophia, more time to heal, more time to remember who he'd been before Brooke. We had dinner together every Sunday. Sometimes Diane joined us. Sometimes Carlos stopped by with flowers for the garden. The insurance company settled. They paid back the $12 million Brooke had stolen, plus damages. I donated $4 million to the Cook County Elder Abuse Prevention Fund. Put another $2 million in trust for Sophia's education and future. The rest I kept. Not because I needed it, but because James had worked for it. Because it represented 43 years of marriage, of partnership, of building a life together. Because it was mine. One Saturday in August, I took Sophia to the Arboretum. We walked through the gardens, looking at butterflies and flowers. She held my hand, the same hand that had held Dylan's when he was small, that had held James's for 43 years. "Grandma?" Sophia asked. "Are you sad?" "Sometimes, but not right now." "Because you're with me?" "Yes, because I'm with you." We sat on a bench near the rose garden. Sophia climbed into my lap, careful of my hip. The arthritis was better now. Less stress, better medication. Physical therapy twice a week. "Tell me a story about Grandpa," she said. So I did. I told her about the day James and I met, about our wedding in the cathedral, about the house we bought together, the dreams we built. I told her about Dylan as a baby, as a boy, as a young man learning to be a surgeon. I told her the truth, but I told her the good parts. She didn't need to know about the poison, the betrayal, the lies. Not yet, maybe not ever. She just needed to know she was loved. That evening back at the house, I found Dylan in James's study. He was going through the desk drawers, sorting papers, tax returns, investment statements, letters from friends, a lifetime of documentation. "I found this," he said, handing me an envelope. It was addressed to me in James's handwriting, sealed, dated 3 days before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. "Emma, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I don't know what yet, but I can feel it. Something is wrong. Brooke has been acting strange. Asking questions about the will, about life insurance, about what would happen to you if I died. I've changed the safe combination. The new code is your birthday, 0428. Inside, you'll find copies of all our important documents. If anything happens to me, if the circumstances seem suspicious, please show these to the police. I love you. I have always loved you. Whatever happens, remember that. James." I looked at Dylan through tears. He knew. I whispered. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't know how to stop it, didn't know who to trust. Dylan's jaw tightened. If I'd been paying attention, if I'd listened when Aunt Diane said something was off. You can't change the past. None of us can. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Tomorrow, I would give it to Detective Chen for the file. Tonight, I would keep it close. Sophia came downstairs in her pajamas, dragging her stuffed rabbit. "I can't sleep," she said. I opened my arms. She climbed onto my lap, and Dylan sat beside us on the couch. We stayed like that for a long time, 3 generations, holding each other in the house James built. Outside, the sun set over Lake Forest. The gardens Carlos had replanted were blooming. The French press was gone. The poison was gone. Brooke was gone. What remained was this: love, truth, and time. Time to heal. Time to rebuild. Time to teach Sophia that family isn't always blood, and that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes strength is getting up off a cold marble floor. Sometimes it's refusing to sign papers our lies. Sometimes it's throwing out a coffee pot and starting over. I looked at my son and my granddaughter and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not the peace of having everything I wanted, but the peace of knowing exactly who I was. Emma Sullivan, 64 years old, widow, mother, grandmother, survivor, and finally free.